I'm Stephanie Watson, and I'm the author of this book called Pencilvania, which is a middle grade fantasy novel. And the main character is a girl named Zora, who is an artist. And one of the big things that happens in the book is that Zora gets pulled into a world made up entirely of everything she's ever drew. So she's an artist and she's always loved to draw, which means that there is a ton of stuff here in this world of Pennsylvania where it's everything she drew from the time she first learned to hold a crayon. So all those little lines and circles that little kids make, those are all there. All the little like rudimentary people that kids draw, those are there. And then everything she drew as she got older, like horses and hamsters and rainbows and suns and trees and robots and buildings and all of this stuff, it's all in Pennsylvania. And this book spends a lot of time in that world of hers. So I'm giving you a little bit of a peek into my process of writing this book through this little series of videos called Behind the Book with Stephanie Watson. Do 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 do. Boop. Oops. Episode 2. So, Pennsylvania. Before writing this book, I hadn't spent a whole lot of time writing fantasy novels. My previous 2 novels, Elvis and Olive Super Detectives, were realistic novels for the most part. And so I didn't really have to like imagine an alternate world. And once I got into the writing of Pennsylvania, I was like, ooh, I have to like dream up a lot of these elements in the world. And one of the, well, obviously writing was a way that I explored that. But, art, drawing, it's very visual. And I love to draw myself. So part of my process was making art, not necessarily to share with anybody later, but just to help support my writing process so that it would be easier for me to imagine this world and I would have an easier time writing about it. So I want to show you some of the sample art that I created and collected over the course of my process. So I showed you this is one thing. I didn't draw this horse. I did print this out from the internet, but I collaged this little girl on top of it. This is Zora's little sister Frankie gets to ride this blue horse in Pennsylvania. And it didn't end up looking like this the way that Sophia Moore, who is the illustrator of Pennsylvania, the way that she illustrated this particular moment in the book was different and I love it. But this image helped me to sort of imagine what that might feel like for her little sister to be on that horse and just drive me deeper into the world. Another thing that's in Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of suns, because think about when you were younger, or maybe even now, if you draw a picture, you might include a sun. Well, every sun that Zora's ever drawn is in Pennsylvania, which means, well, it's very bright to begin with. Your eyes need to adjust when you get there. But also, a sun's not just hanging out alone in the sky. And I thought, so I created all of these just to kind of be like, what would that even look like to have all these suns up there? They're like little kid suns, because that's maybe more the age when you draw this type of sun. And I thought, oh my goodness, if they're all up there in the sky, I bet they're playing games. I bet they're using their sun ray legs to tag each other and chase each other around. So that's one of the things that the suns do in the story is they play tag, and they also play a version of red light, green light, which the Pennsylvanians refer to as sunlight, fun light. Okay. Oh, there's a downtown in Pennsylvania. And it has all a mishmash of buildings. There's skyscrapers that are next to little kid houses that have pointy roofs that are crooked and, this is actually, so these are ones that I drew. This is one that my daughter drew, my daughter Ivy. So all of those windows that was important in my imagining, like, ooh, I bet that there might be faces peeking out the window. Here's another like weird building that might be in Pennsylvania. So having these nearby as I was writing helped me to enrich that little part of the story. I want to also show you, so Zora and her sister Frankie and their mom at the beginning of the book, they live in Duluth, Minnesota. And I live in Minnesota, a couple hours away from Duluth, which is a city that's right on the edge of the biggest Great Lake in the United States, Lake Superior. It's so big you can't even see across this lake. It's basically like our ocean. If you live in Minnesota, you kind of end up feeling like it's the closest thing you have to an ocean. So Zora has drawn this lake a lot of times, and she's painted it. She's finger painted it. She's crayoned it because it's been a big part of her life before she ends up moving away from this lake, which I won't give away that part of the story. But I wanted to get a sense of what all that different water would feel like. So I made, this one's markered, and there's layers of water that's sort of like moving up and down like this. That's what I had in my mind. Here's one made with finger paint. So these are my little props that I had for myself. Where's my book now? Here it is. I want to read you the part that I wrote based on sort of what I learned by making this water and playing around with how it might move. Okay, so this is from near the beginning of Pennsylvania. A cool breeze tickled the nape of Zora's neck. She turned, shielding her eyes with her hand. Flat, overlapping layers of turquoise and cobalt and sapphire and cerulean and indigo and every other imaginable shade of blue slid up and down all the way to the horizon. Zora squinted. Was it a lake? Kind of, though not any lake Zora had ever seen before. Some of the blue layers had the grainy look of crayons on construction paper. Some had the soft bleed of watercolors. Some seemed to be made with colored pencil, and a few had what looked like giant finger lines combing through glossy paint. The layers rose and fell softly, like the water was breathing. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Behind the Book with Stephanie Watson. See you next time. Do 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 do.